these bad men can just say, well, I'm trans. How do you counteract that? It's an impossible thing, and I don't think the ban is the best thing to do in this situation. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, hi, my name is Alexis. I am a trans woman and I share my life stories and opinions on social media. So in today's video, we're going to be digging into something. I don't want to dig into the political side of things. I just want to look at the reality of what is happening and what's coming next and how things happen, because I saw a really interesting video that I want to watch with you and react to together. I don't want to get this wrong. If you don't know, or you can't tell by the accent, I live in the UK, so these laws aren't here. This is obviously in America. Again, I'm not going into too much political aspects, but I just want to give you some context before we dive into reacting to the video, so just bear with 1 minute, okay? Also, I've got a lot of makeup and hair today. I just felt like going glam. I'm not going anywhere, but you know, I just thought I want to get ready and look nice, so why not? Anyway, sorry, back to this. So, there's a ban on transgender people using public bathrooms and facilities according to their gender identity. At first, when I read this, I thought it was all public bathrooms, but the ban right now is not all public bathrooms, but just to point that out. These laws prohibit transgender people from using bathrooms and facilities such as locker rooms, shower rooms, changing rooms, and other sex-segregated spaces according to their gender identity in certain circumstances or places. All of these policies apply to K-12 school settings, and some apply to even more broader to the other government-owned buildings and spaces. This is bathrooms, facilities, and government buildings, i.e. city hall, courthouses, state legislative buildings, and more colleges, universities, jails, and prisons. Whoo! So I've got all that out. So this is where we are right now. A lot of the stuff I've been seeing on social media, I assume that the ban was for everywhere, but it's not. It's state by state. So I'll put a little map on the screen of different states that have the ban in place and the ones that don't have, and how severe the ban is in those places. I've spoke about public bathrooms. I spoke about women's bathrooms and how I've navigated that as a trans woman myself. It's a really intricate conversation to have. I'm always going to be as honest as possible on here. I'm never going to pick a side or pander to people. I'm always just going to give my opinion. That opinion might not be your opinion, or it might be your opinion. I don't know. I think it's healthy for us to have different opinions and have conversations, which I always encourage in the comments below. I do read most or as many comments as I possibly can. But this particular issue, I feel like I know where the issues come from and where the basis of the issue is, but the reality of what they're trying to do, for me, I just don't see it working. Let's watch this video and you'll see one of the potential outcomes might be.
Okay, so you've banned trans women from women's bathrooms and trans men from men's bathroom. Your argument used to be, well, any man could go into a woman's bathroom and say that they're a trans woman. Okay, so now what's stopping me, a cisgender man, from going into a women's bathroom and saying that I'm a trans man, aka born a girl? Now I'm male presenting, but you're forcing me to go into this woman's bathroom, and now I don't even have to pretend to look like a woman because I'm a masculine, male presenting trans man. What's to now stop cisgender men saying that they're trans men forced to go into women's bathrooms? But we can just tell. How can you tell? How can you tell that I'm not? And if you could, then couldn't you just always tell which one were the creepy men pretending or saying that they were women? And I need to restate the obvious, that once again, the punishment and the blame and the villainization and the folks who bear the consequence are trans people, when the perpetrators are cisgender straight men, but they're never held accountable. They're never ones to face the consequence. It's always the trans people, when the threat in these hypotheticals are cisgender straight men.
I mean, mic drop, kind of. So I think it's a really interesting point of view, because I think a lot of the time in these conversations, trans women can't use female bathrooms XYZ. I think trans men are left out of the conversation a lot, and sorry trans men to bring you into this. But it's where we are now in certain places in the world, and I think it's such a valid point. This argument that's been brewing for the last couple of years is all to do with women and girls' safety, which of course, I understand that. Now, presenting as a woman to the world, I understand that more than ever. When I'm out and about, if I'm in a place on my own at night, I feel different now to how I used to feel before. So I do get that. Just want to start there. So with the bathroom situation, it's a really hard one because it's impossible, I will say, to police. It's impossible to know because we don't, like, a lot of trans people like me now, I have F on my driver's license. So even if someone was stood at the door, like a security guard or a bouncer, was checking, they wouldn't know unless they clocked me. So if someone passes as a trans person, like passes as the other gender that they're transitioning to, sorry, mouthful. So if like a trans woman passes as a woman, no one would ever know. So how are they gonna enforce this? Because like in parts of what I've just been reading, in parts of America, it's now a criminal offence to do it. How do you police that? I just don't think that's possible or feasible or a good way to spend public funds. That's one thing I want to say. Because a lot of the cases and scenarios are hypothetical. I know some awful things do happen and I do want to take a second to acknowledge that. A lot of it is hypothetical. And also, like he said in the video, the perpetrators aren't trans women. 99.9% of the time, it's men, bad men doing bad things. I do kind of feel like it's not been thoroughly thought about, this ban, whether you agree with it or don't agree with it. I'm trying to like remain as neutral as possible. Obviously, I've got my opinions, but I don't ever want to shove my opinions down anyone's throats. But just looking at it from like a logical side, it's impossible to police and it's impossible to carry out. And also, you then have in the women's bathroom, okay, so trans women stop using it, that happens. Imagine if that happened. You then have these trans men, and I've said it before, trans men, when biological girls and women take hormone replacement therapy, they take testosterone, their voice drops. A lot of the time they grow beards, they can cut their hair short, and they present very male very quickly. For a lot of trans men, like if you think about it, right, if you're out in the world, think about whenever you've seen a trans person out in the wild. Generally, the ones you notice have been trans are trans women, people like me. We're more clockable, we're easier to see and detect because generally, stereotypically, men are born taller, more broad, muscular, Adam's apple, bigger hands, these sorts of little giveaways. Whereas when a female transitions to a male, they blend in. It's very hard to detect. I don't think I've ever in my life been out in the world and thought, that's a trans man. Whereas I've thought plenty, oh, that's a trans woman. Do you know what I'm trying to say here? So the point I'm trying to make is if you go into the women's bathroom and there's a trans man in there, the likelihood is you're not going to know if that's a trans man or just a man. I think he has an excellent point then. These bad men can just say, well, I'm trans. How do you counteract that? It's an impossible thing. I don't think society will ever agree wholly on this subject, but I think we just have to sort of do what is best. And I don't think the ban is the best thing to do in this situation. It can also then put trans people at risk. So imagine I'm in America in, say, one of the southern states, and I need to go to the bathroom, and I go into a male bathroom because that's where legally I should be going, and I understand that, biological male. But what happens then? I go in there, and what are the chances of something bad happening? One, I think the men would be a little bit shocked, and two, I think there's a much higher risk of either being attacked, because men attack women, we know this, but also attacked because then they're like, oh wait, she's in here, she must be trans, and then I think it's just a very delicate subject, and like I said, I don't want to push my opinion in anyone's face. That's the last thing I want to do. And I understand that it comes from a place of wanting safety, but I think this ban is doing the exact opposite of what its intended purpose was. I don't think it's going to make anyone safer. I think it's going to make people more unsafe, not just trans people here. I don't ever want to just speak for only trans people, but women and girls. If your worry is about their safety in the toilet, a man who is evil could just go and say, I'm a trans man, I'm a biological woman, I should be in here. The time-old saying of a man could just walk in, it doesn't need to put on a wig and a dress to do it, I still appreciate that, but I think this ban is in fact more counterproductive for the safety element of it. Obviously, like, I'm looking at it as a trans woman as well, so it wouldn't be nice to have to experience going into the male bathroom for me, for instance, but just looking at other people, who it's going to affect, because it's not just going to affect trans people, it's going to affect women and girls, and trans men, and trans women. Doubt it'll really affect men, though. I would be really interested to know your thoughts in the comments, as long as we can keep it as nice as possible and constructive as possible, please. One thing that I do want to say, and this is from me and my experience personally. When I started my transition and I still had a beard and I'd not started getting rid of the facial hair and wearing makeup and presenting, because for me it took a good few months for that sort of stuff to begin. I didn't want to dive straight in. I was also in a different country abroad working as a dancer, so I couldn't dive straight in. But what I'm trying to say is, for that first 6 months, I didn't use a women's bathroom, because I think for a lot of people, a lot of trans people, morally, we know what we look like and how we appear to the world. So we want to think about our own comfort, and safety, but we also want to think about other people's comfort and safety. And for me, at the start, and I think for a lot of trans people, we try and do what's best in a system that isn't designed for us. I think that's a good way to say it. For me, I didn't use a female bathroom for a long time. I used a disabled bathroom. I know some people have issues with me doing that. I tried to make sure no one else was around when I was using it, so I just in and out did my business. And it's only when I started fully presenting as Alexis, don't get me wrong, I wasn't passing. I was still visibly trans, but I felt more comfortable and appropriate for me to then use the women's bathroom. I spoke about bathrooms so much. I never thought 10 years ago I would be sat in front of a camera speaking about bathrooms so much. It's so wild. It's just, we just go in and pee. We just go in and pee. But you know, we are where we are. I hope this video doesn't come across too political. That's not what I want. And I know there is so much stuff on social media and it's almost getting overwhelming now. It's getting to a point where I do some research for my videos and I think about what I want to talk about and what I want to react to, or maybe my life updates or anything like that for you guys. I spent about 4 hours yesterday doing research. This is not like a Crimea River, but the point I'm trying to make is I was doing my research and everything that I saw was politically charged. The left, the right, these issues. I do want to talk about them and I've tried my best in this video to keep politics out of it. It's really hard at the moment because I feel like social media is clogged with so much negativity and darkness, and I appreciate there needs to be space for these conversations, but it can get quite heavy, and the last thing I want to do is make my content too heavy. I understand I need to talk about things and give my opinions, but I want my content to be like an escape for people, if that makes sense. I would be really interested to know, like, some feedback, I would say, on my content. Obviously, please don't be super mean. I try and always look at things from both sides and come from a neutral standpoint and not get too heavy on the politics and too dark and too miserable. But I would be really interested to know what you guys genuinely think and if there's things you would like to see me improve on or things that I can work on as a person, because we should always be working on ourselves, shouldn't we? Anyway, that's me done on that. Thank you so much for listening to me. I hope you all have a lovely day. Please do like, subscribe, and click that notification bell if you enjoy this kind of content. My brain wasn't clicking then. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next video. I'm gonna have to get up slowly today because I'm not wearing a very appropriate top. Goodbye!